Welcome to the On the Edge podcast with your host, Scott Groves. I'm going to tell a long story and then you can tell me how fucked up I am in the head. So I'm primarily a loan officer. 40, 50 hours a week I'm working on being a loan officer and closing loans for clients. And we have an amazing team that makes that happen. And then part of my job at this point is more like the business to business development. I'm rarely talking to clients at this point. I'm calling the realtors for the referrals, and I'm writing the newsletters, and I'm doing the marketing, and I'm figuring out how we can reach more people and better educate them and have better systems and build a better mousetrap. That's kind of my role now. And about 7 years ago, there was one realtor, and I know her name. I know exactly what she looks like. I know everything about her and her team that I used to get a lot of business from. And when I start getting really heavily into coaching, and I think I just started writing the book, Lead Generate, and I was really like enjoying coaching and how much it was changing my life. Mm-hmm. So part of my regular calls to realtors, instead of just being the guy who's like, hey man, you got a lead for me so I can pre-approve people, I would start to talk to people more from like a coaching sense, like, hey, how was the weekend? Did you play and spend time with your family, or did you do an open house and you get a bunch of leads? I have a couple realtors now that call me for like book recommendations when they're in a funk. They're like, hey, I'm kind of struggling with this. I know you've read all the self-help books. What should I read next? And I'll never forget, I called this one realtor, Christy, and I was like, hey, Christy, how was the weekend? Blah, 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 blah. And she unloaded on me. Mm-hmm. This was like 6 or 7 years ago. And she's like, Scott, I don't need your fucking coaching every Monday. Like, why are you calling me? And just like as negative as she could get. And at the end of the day, that was probably all about her, right?
Yeah,
she was having a bad day. She was mad that maybe business wasn't where she wanted it to be. But just that one interaction of her unloading on me has made me so self-conscious about leaning into the fact that like, hey guys, I also run a coaching business from, 7 to 7:15 because I'm an early riser after Jiu Jitsu. I plan the coaching curriculum. I do 1 10-minute call, and then I do it on the weekends instead of, watch 8 hours of Desperate Housewives of Atlanta or whatever. So It's not like the coaching is interfering with my mortgage business, but I'm so self-conscious about it now on how realtors will react if I'm open and honest about the fact that I own a coaching business for loan officers, and like so much of that is directly transferable to helping realtors. Mm-hmm. But I'm still to this day scared to talk about it because I'm like, well, who's the next realtor that's not going to send me a loan referral because they think I'm spending too much time on the coaching stuff? And it fucks with my brain endlessly from one lady screaming at me who probably doesn't even remember screaming at me.
No, not at all. Yeah.
It's so fucked up.
Remember, all events in life are neutral. So that neutral event occurred. You had an option to go, hey, I can look at this negatively or positively, and you took the negative route, and that's okay. But that goes to show you how that's a little blip in the grand scheme of things, right? But in your life, it's like this huge thing. So one event can completely shift somebody's path and their reality, right? So do you want to get rid of that? Do you want to like release that and let it go?
Yeah, because I've done over $1 billion of home loans. Mm-hmm. Our coaching company's made over $1 million over its Genesis 6 years ago. It's like we're being really successful in all these places, but it still fucks with me to like lean into the fact that I'm a coach and I actually know what I'm doing when I'm talking to realtors. Because I'm like, oh, well, I'm the service provider for the realtors. I count on them for my leads. So who am I to tell them that?
Close your eyes for a second. I want you to think about other times in your life where similar situations happened.
Similar negative situations?
Like something along those lines, where you tried to speak up and you wanted to coach or do this or do that. Think about as far back as you can to the first memory that you can think of. Because I know that wasn't the first time. You got it?
Got it.
Well, what do you got? Are you willing to share? You don't have to if you don't want to.
Yeah, no, I'll share. In sixth grade, fuck you, dude. In sixth grade, me and 3 of my friends were in this gifted program. It was in California. It was called GATE, Gifted and Talented Education. So it was basically like AP classes for elementary school. And you accumulated points all year. And at the end, we had like this auction where me and like 3 of my friends, we had all the points. Mm-hmm. So we bought all the candy and all the toys. We sold all the candy and all the toys, made money, and we're like, hey, you walk by Smart Final every day on your walk home. Why don't you buy several more boxes of Jolly Ranchers and then we'll sell those? Mm-hmm. And so within like 4 days, we had turned like this free stash of candy into like several $100s. And we got called into the principal's office. All of us got suspended. All of us did not get to go on the year-end like trip to Universal Studios because their argument was we knew we were doing something wrong by being entrepreneurial and by selling candy because we tried to hide the money when they called us into the principal's office, and we got busted. They took all of our money and like all of our ingenuity that went into like becoming the Jolly Rancher Kings of sixth grade. It backfired horribly and we got in trouble. My parents didn't let me go to this Boy Scout trip I wanted to go to. It was super fucked up because we stepped up and like took the initiative and like, we're going to sell candy at school. And now every school in California sells candy, which really pisses me off. I think that's like to such a detriment to the health of young children. And yeah, we got really lambasted for like taking that initiative and doing that.
Right. Now, do you see, now obviously as an adult, it's kind of silly thinking back on it.
Oh, yeah, I was terrified at the time.
As a sixth grader, that's a pretty traumatic thing to go through, right?
Yeah. First time I had to go into Mr. Hennessy's office. I still remember the principal with the big handlebar mustache.
Oh,
I
wow.
The whole thing.
Damn. Yeah. So that goes to show you how a significant event, how it still affects you subconsciously throughout your life. Now, close your eyes again. So ask your subconscious mind, just say this in your head. Subconscious mind, how does that event relate to what's going on currently in your life with this problem with, coaching and putting yourself out there and all that? And what does it say?
It's a little scary, right? Like something could go wrong.
Mm-hmm. Good. Anything else?
That you really get, you get shit on for taking the initiative.
Okay, good. And what events, other than the other one, the lady, what other events have happened since then?
Definitely alienated some people at previous companies because like I speak up about stuff that I don't think is going particularly well, and kind of backfires.
Say that again.
Just like speaking up about stuff that I foresee as future problems, like things coming down the pipe, and it's not accepted with the enthusiasm that I thought it would be.
Okay. Now, tell me about your parents and your siblings and their relationship to this problem.
My sister was like too young to know what was going on with the sixth grade thing. Mm-hmm. And she's,
not necessarily the sixth grade thing, just what's going on in your life, of the whole deal, the feeling, the fear of speaking up, fear of getting shit on for taking the initiative.
Yeah. I would say there's definitely some stress and, trauma there of being the overachiever in the family. Mm-hmm. And that comes across kind of either pompous, or I don't have the closest relationship with my family. Mm-hmm. And some of that might be due to the fact that it's like Scott's always hard charging, doesn't really want to hang around, holidays and family gatherings for more than a couple hours. Cause it's like, there's something else to do. There's something more productive to be doing. So it causes some strife.
Gotcha. And other than what you said so far, tell me about how what you just said, how does that relate to the problem you're having? Relax your forehead. There you go.
I feel my palms getting sweaty right now. Mm-hmm. Probably leads to like having more initiative and like putting yourself out there actually leads to like damaged relationships, professionally or personally.
Putting myself out there leads to damaging relationships?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now, other than what you've said so far, tell me about your childhood in relationship to this problem.
I would say in childhood, it was like an expectation to succeed. Like I was supposed to be the first kid in our family to go to college, and everybody just knew I was going to do fine. But that also leads to not a ton of support.
And how does that relate to what's going on now?
It's interesting. Chris, who's our audio guy, his mom has known me almost as long as my mom, because Chris's older brother, Robert, we've been friends since kindergarten. So I remember Betty DeRosa, Chris's mom, telling me one time, kind of as a throwaway line, I doubt she would even remember saying this. She's like, yeah. She's like, nobody cares about Scott because everybody knows Scott's always going to be fine. Like somehow mortgage market crashes, whatever, you'll figure it out. Like shit goes sideways. It's not a big deal. Don't really need to worry about Scott. Like he's going to figure it out and land on his feet. So of course nobody gives a shit.
So how does that relate to what's going on now?
I don't know. I just
ask your subconscious mind. Subconscious mind, how does, I think you said her name was Betty?
Yeah.
How does what Betty told you relate to this problem you're having with putting yourself out there and all that?
I think if I'm putting myself out there as like successful in that coaching realm, that will lead to diminished relationships because they'll be like, whatever, he's doing fine. I'm sure he doesn't need my business or he doesn't need the referrals on the mortgage side, or maybe he cares more about that, but Scott's going to be fine, whatever. Like, do we really need to support him? That's what I'm thinking.
So feel free to reject this, but do you feel like people won't support you? Again, if it's not true, to say it's not true, but do you feel like people won't support your coaching business because what you just said, like, oh, Scott's fine. He doesn't need this.
I feel like people won't support the mortgage business because they just feel like it's going to be fine. Like I'll figure it out, or I've got this other thing that I'm working on. Like no big deal. I feel like people will stop supporting the mortgage business if I'm authentically me about what I'm doing with the coaching and even this podcast and other stuff that I'm just like, working 80, 90 hours a week to accomplish.
Okay, good. Now ask your subconscious mind. Subconscious mind, is there a purpose for this problem that you're having?
Explain that.
Is there a purpose for the problem of not, moving forward and doing all that with the coaching?
Is there a purpose?
Yeah. In your head, say subconscious mind, is there a purpose for this problem?
No, because both of them are important.
Okay. Now, when did you choose to have this created and why? Subconscious mind, when did you choose to have this created and why?
It happened with that conversation with Chrissy.
Who's that?
That's the one who yelled at me for trying to be your coach.
Okay, good.
That's when this problem happened.
And why? What is the purpose of it?
The purpose of it is to protect myself from losing mortgage referral partners.
Okay. Perfect. So is it okay to release the belief or is it okay that we get rid of the belief that putting yourself out there leads to damaging relationships? And so you could be aware of it consciously?
Yeah, it should be fine.
Is that 100% or is there doubt?
There's doubt.
Okay. So this is what I was talking about earlier with you have to get agreement, right? So if I just proceeded without getting agreement, it wouldn't work. So ask your subconscious mind, how does not putting myself out there, how does that, so I don't damage relationships, how does that help you?
I don't think it does, because at the end of the day, I feel like I'm not in alignment.
I know consciously it does, but subconsciously. So subconscious mind, how does holding on to this belief that putting myself out there leads to damaging relationships, how does that help you?
Because it's protecting me from losing realtor relationships.
Okay, perfect. Now, if you continue to hold on to this belief, what are you holding yourself back from?
From really leaning into both verticals.
Right. And if you're holding yourself back from being authentic, aligning yourself and leaning to both verticals, is that going to actually help you get more clients, or is that going to actually cause the opposite to happen?
I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that I almost don't care because it creates more stress than it's worth.
What is that?
Like even if it's true that leaning into the coaching and just having that be part of who I am with my realtor community, even if that costs me relationships, I think I could be or should be okay with it, because like the stress of not being authentically me is worse than losing a relationship, even if that was the result.
So now with that being said, here's the thing. Guess what's going to happen when you're authentically you, though? What's going to happen to your relationships?
Probably pick up more.
You get more. They're going to be deeper, more trusting. Everything's going to get better when you align with yourself and be who you truly want. So with that being said, if you can still be who you are, align with yourself, get rid of, now your subconscious mind realizing, oh shit, this belief is actually causing me more stress than it's actually helping me, right? So with that being said, is it okay to release this belief that putting yourself out there leads to damaging relationships? And so you could be aware of it consciously?
I know I'm supposed to say yes, but
it's not. No, that's good. So what other benefit do you get from holding on to that belief?
The other benefit is that the status quo is pretty awesome. Like our team is taken care of. We're funding a lot of loans. Like money is good. Mm-hmm. Like the status quo is good.
Like just doing enough? Is that what you're saying? What are you saying by that?
I'm saying that like hanging on to the status quo of keeping those two things separate, the coaching and the mortgage, mm-hmm. it's created a really good life for our team, for my family, for myself. So it's like, it's hard to think about rocking that boat when things are good.
Gotcha. Okay, good. So now if you can still keep your business and everything how it is and integrate it patiently and slowly and on your own pace, it doesn't have to be a 180-degree flip, right? So it's kind of like, let's say it's like you don't want to stop doing something that's working, right? So it's like if you're advertising a product and you want to add this other product, but you're like, oh shit, if I add this other product, I might fuck up my initial one, right? But here's the cool thing is that you can actually do both at the same time. So if you can integrate it at a pace that you're comfortable with and do it on your, on your time and schedule, whatever feels right. You don't have to go, like I said, all balls of the wall right in right away. If you can do that, is it okay to release the belief that putting yourself out there leads to damaging relationships?
Yes.
Is that 100% or is there 100%. Any doubt? Okay, cool. So now we have agreement. So now ask your subconscious mind, what's the root cause of this belief that putting myself out there leads to damaging relationships? Was it before, during, or after your birth?
After.
Okay, and the very first time you developed the belief that putting yourself out there leads to damaging relationships, what age were you? Now, what's the lowest number that comes to your mind, even if it makes 0 sense at all?
2nd grade.
Okay. What's the lowest number that comes to your mind? What age?
Yeah, it's probably 1st or 2nd grade.
Okay. Now, whenever you have the event, you can tell us what it is. You don't have to, but let me know whenever you have it.
I got it.
Okay. Now, do you understand the correlation between that event and what's going on now?
Yes.
Do you care to share or no? You don't have to.
No.
Okay, good. So look at yourself from a third person perspective, like you're watching it happen, and ask your subconscious mind, what positive learnings can I take from this event so I can let go of the belief that putting myself out there leads to damaged relationships?
That speaking up is a good personality trait.
Absolutely. You know how many people would freaking die for that trait? The only reason I'm here is because you reached out to me, isn't it? So putting yourself out there doesn't lead to damaging relationships. It actually leads to deeper relationships and more relationships, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Good. What else can you learn from that event?
Sometimes people need to hear the tough stuff.
Good. And anything else?
Good.
All right. Thank your subconscious mind for learnings. Those learnings. As you're looking at the event, do you still feel an emotional charge in your body at all, or is it gone?
It's still there a bit.
Okay. So push that image away from you.
Okay.
So it goes further and further away, gets smaller and smaller and smaller until you feel all the feelings release.
Gone.
Okay. Now imagine like you're reliving it through your own eyes. So see yourself reliving it like the first person. And check on the feelings again. Are they there or are they gone?
I actually feel like I'm sinking lower in my chair.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's neutral. Okay, good.
So is there any emotions to it at all or no?
No, it's just like I feel like my legs are still twitching, which they always twitch, but like literally my arms and my shoulder and my torso feel like 6 inches lower, like relaxed.
Oh, okay. Got you. Yeah, totally. You're just released a lot of shit. So good. So now float out of the event and listen to this sentence. What I'd like your subconscious mind to do is begin to make your way back throughout your lifetime, all the way back to now, only as quickly as you can let go of all the events that cause you to believe that putting yourself out there leads to damaging relationships, all the way back to now. As you come across each event, see yourself in the events, preserve the positive learnings, let go of all the events all the way back to now. So you're going to get a highlight reel of a bunch of events that cause you to believe that, some that are deep in there you completely forgot about.
I'm actually laughing right now.
And release all the events all the way back to now.
A lot of giggles, man.
It's funny, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, damn, I can't believe I'm still holding on to all this stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot of giggles about like the people that I don't care about, I just don't care about, and they weren't supposed to be there. And the people that I do care about, ironically, as I'm thinking through this, they're still friends to this day, or people that I could call for advice or vice versa.
Right, right.
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
Any other events you need to let go of?
None that I'm thinking of right now.
All right, open your eyes. What's 5 + 5?
10.
All right, close your eyes. And think about that lady, whatever her name was, Chrissy or whatever, and go back and try to find the feelings, and you may find that you cannot. You don't feel it, huh?
Yeah, I'm not angry anymore.
Isn't that crazy how that one event can completely like shift your whole reality, right? So imagine people.
Dude, I'm not kidding. When I opened my eyes, I was legitimately expecting for the chairs like hydraulics to have not worked, and like I was gonna be sitting like 5 inches lower than you. When I opened my eyes and we are still eye to eye, I was actually really shocked. Like, no joke.
Because you felt like the decompression of your body and the stress and everything.
Totally.
Yeah,
like my hands started feeling weightless. I'm just like, oh yeah, all that shit's gone from my shoulders.
Right. Isn't that crazy? So that's how quickly you can get rid of a whole, 50 events that you've thought of that cause you that belief, right? And so that's kind of a teaser of what I'll do with clients, right? Like obviously a little bit of a longer process, but we'll go through and just clear out all these beliefs they have about themselves. Not good enough. I can't be successful. I have to work 80, 90 hours a week to be successful. That's a very common belief. People feeling guilty for taking a break and on and on and on. And then now imagine if you and I just sat here privately for 1 hour and we got rid of all these different beliefs. Like there's, some other stuff you mentioned, but we don't want to bore the listeners. But imagine if we did that for an hour, how much, even just that one thing, how much is that one belief that putting myself out there damages relationships? Imagine how much different your life is going to be from that. Being able to put yourself out there, make connections, build deeper relationships. You can go into a whole different reality that you're imagining right now.
Right.
So that's when you say like, a 2.5 day course. I don't understand how much it can change, but just that's kind of a little bit of what I do.
It's pretty nuts, man.
Pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
So, but I'm so glad that you
but here's the thing,
had the hesitation because
because I don't believe in any of this shit.
Yeah.
But I can 100% tell anybody who's watching this, all 12 of our viewers, that that there was a physiological change in my body as you were talking through that.
And it's crazy when you went back to that moment, whatever it was, 5th grade or whatever, like obviously that was a traumatic experience and you would have never consciously thought this is still affecting me till this day as an adult. We just don't think that, right? And then what his mom said to you and all that. So there's so much stuff that's just built up of years and years and years of these little things that happen that we just don't let go. And the way I explain it to people is like this. So your mind and our capabilities, we're like the fastest jet in the world. I don't know what the fastest, I think it was like 2,200 miles an hour, right? So you can go from where you're at right now, point A to point B, where your goals are. You can go there really, really fast. You can go in a straight line, right? However, all the baggage that we hold on to throughout our lives, it's like this big, huge parachute that's behind us. So we got pedal to the metal. We're flooring it. We're going as fast as we possibly can, working 80, 90 hours a week, right? But there's this parachute behind us. So we're just kind of like doing this here. And eventually, we'll get to point B, but it's going to be a fucked up, long, arduous process. So when we just cut that cord and we just relinquish the parachute, now you can go from point A to point B at your fullest potential. And that's what I do for people is help them get rid of the parachutes so they can fulfill their goals and whatever they want to do.
How do we get from dude on stage making somebody have sex with a blow-up doll to curing childhood trauma live on a podcast?
Isn't that pretty cool?
It's pretty crazy. I did want to ask you about that because you mentioned when you saw the show, you said he originally brought up 30, 40 people and then 10 of them actually stayed on stage.
Yeah.
are there people that are more prone to being hypnotized and doing the work or the weird shit, either one?
Yeah. So there's a saying that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. So for anybody that thinks I'm too strong-willed, that's not possible, I can't be hypnotized, I understand, because I used to think the same thing. But hypnosis is a natural state that we all go in and out of all the time. So if anybody, and including yourself, have ever been driving down the freeway and all of a sudden you just go off into la la land, and then you snap to your senses and all of a sudden you're at your destination. You don't know how you got there, or you just missed your exit because you were in that deep trance. Well, what you just did there is you actually went into hypnosis, but you didn't know what you're doing. So you don't know how to access that state of your mind. So you can tap into different, childhood stuff or whatever. So everybody can do hypnosis. I've worked with Navy SEALs, UFC fighters, NFL athletes, Olympic athletes, people that are the most strong-willed people in the world. And you know what the funny thing is? The more strong-willed and I guess you could say strong-minded or whatever you want to call it, the easier it is. Because if I give a Navy SEAL a task and I say, hey, follow these instructions, guess what he's going to do? He's going to follow the instructions, right? He's going to be like, oh, you want me to close my eyes and go into this trance and talk? And so anybody and everybody can do hypnosis. Now, to answer your question about the stage thing, so think of the stage hypnosis like this, okay? Now, I do this for a living, and I'm not going to go up on stage and act like that, right? That's because that's not really my thing, right? So those people that are going up there, they're people that are already somewhat outgoing, but it's almost like you have this outgoing friend, you just, but they're kind of bottled up a little bit or whatever, or maybe they're kind of outgoing. You give that guy a couple drinks, he's going to be fucking dancing on the bar.
We all know who we can push over the edge with a couple drinks.
So that's what it's like. It's almost like they're drunk. Obviously they didn't drink, but they're in that kind of drunken state where they're awake, they're conscious, they know what they're doing, but they're just allowing it to happen, sort of. They're just enjoying the moment. So, there's including myself, I wouldn't do that, but that doesn't mean I can't be hypnotized. It just means that I won't go up on stage and, act like a silly.
So you can't
person.
hypnotize your wife into doing the dishes.
No, that's not a real thing. No,
damn it.
I mean, I could, I wouldn't have to do hypnosis to do that. I could just convince her using my language and using my my influence, right? I can influence her to do that. But you can't hypnotize anybody to do anything against their will. There was some court case, I forget what it was, but this guy, he robbed a bank or something, and he was trying to blame it that somebody hypnotized him to do that. And it's in the court of law, there's a law. I don't know what it is or what case or anything, but you cannot use that as a scapegoat to why you committed a crime because somebody brainwashed me through hypnosis. You can't brainwash somebody just with hypnosis. Can you brainwash people? Yeah, but it's going to take a lot more than hypnosis. You got to do sleep deprivation, food and water deprivation, torture. Yeah, that's torture. Well, what happens when people get tortured is there's a lot of resistance initially because their subconscious mind is trying to fight it. They're trying to stay alive. And eventually I forget the name. I can't think of the term right now, but eventually they get to a state of almost okay, I can't do this anymore. And they just kind of give up.
Yeah.
And when they do that, their subconscious mind really opens up to suggestions. So that's what they do in the military, right? Think about what they do in the military. They take a 17 or 18-year-old kid who most of those guys wouldn't hurt a fly, and within a matter of a couple of weeks, they turn them into trained killers. Why is that? Because they put them sleep deprivation, water, food, everything I just explained, and they're giving them orders, right? So they're getting them to a state where they break them.
Right.
Their mind is broken. They're like, fuck, man, I can't do this. I whatever. I want to give up. And then in that moment, they're very susceptible to whatever influence, whatever information is coming to them. And when they're saying, you're going to do this, and by the time they come out of it, they're literally brainwashed into being killers, right? So that's
it's crazy. In a couple moments of clarity and being well rested during basic training, our basic training unit that went through for infantry, so basic training is 8 weeks, and then your infantry training is another 5 or 6 weeks. We were going to be the last unit or the last class that went through at Fort Benning before they integrated Fort Benning fully to have co-ed basic trainings. So it's the drill sergeants who were all either war vets of Gulf War One. Or several of them had been like Rangers in Panama and Grenada and stuff. Like these people had been shot at in anger.
Right.
They were so pissed that like the infantry base was going to be commingled with like men and women that they. I want to believe they unloaded on us.
I bet,
especially hard in base
right.
training. And I remember at a couple moments of clarity, just being like, "This is fucking crazy." Like I voluntarily signed up to have some guy tell me when I can eat, when I can shit, how I have to make my bed, how I have to like shine my boots. And I'm like, and I just realized, like, I didn't totally realize, but I think I even had a moment of clarity then where it's like, oh, this is all just building up to in a moment of war when they tell us to storm that beach, you don't even think about your own well-being and you just storm the fucking beach.
Right.
And it's crazy that to your point, that power of
breaking somebody
down and then bringing them back up in the manner that you want them to be.
Yeah, no, it's you can't. Now, when you're in those states, you're going in and out of hypnosis all the time, right? When you're trekking along and you just can't really stand anymore, your conscious mind is wandering out, your subconscious mind is opening up, and they're just feeding you, whatever information. And then you got people around you. There's a whole thing that goes into it, but so you can't hypnotize people to do just with hypnosis. You can't hypnotize people to do something against their will.
Yeah.
So.
I remember a couple times, this is probably more along the lines of sleep deprivation. We were at this school called Sapper School, which is like a school for engineers. I got to go because all the engineers were in Bosnia clearing mines. Mm-hmm. And it's really rigorous training. And then the last week, you basically get like 10 hours of sleep in 7 days or something. Oh, wow. And you're going on mission after mission because like all 30 guys in the platoon, you have to take your turn as like a leader for a mission and then like a co-captain for a mission. And I remember this one night, I'm apparently walking, and some drill sergeant hits me on the back of the head, or one of the cadre hits me on the back of the head. He's like, "Groves, where's your helmet?" And I'm like, "Helmet? We're sleeping." And he's like, "Sleeping?" He's like, "We've been on a road march for 4 miles." And apparently I had been marching for 4 miles, like under orders, carrying a shit ton of gear. Uh-huh. And in my mind, we were still back at like camp sleeping. And so the last thing I knew was where the fuck my helmet is. Yeah. Turned off, it fell off like a mile back, and one of the cadre was carrying it, just waiting to see if I ever like woke up. And that guy probably could have told me to do anything at that moment in time, and I would have just done it because you're in like a state of hypnosis. Yeah. You're tired, you're broken down.
You're
it's
in
just
deep hypnosis.
It was fucked up.
You're losing time. And
it's like a 4 mile march. I mean, with a bunch of gear, that's probably in 2 hours of marching. We were just walking up and down the hills of Fort Leonard Wood. It was brutal, man. So what's next for you? Whether is the evolution just more marketing, more clients? Is it deeper training? Is it, certification with a different institution? Like, what happens for you to get better at your craft?
Yeah. So I was thinking about this the other day, and I was like kind of counting over the past 3 years how many people I work with on an individual basis. Like I've worked with over 2,000 people in multiple hours, the whole thing. So, I have a lot of one-on-one experience. So now I told you about that show that who knows if it pans out, if it does, if it doesn't, whatever, but there's that kind of in the works, and that just kind of fell into my lap. And then also, right now I'm putting together an online program for people who maybe can't work with me for one reason or another. And so they'll be able to do a lot of these different things themselves, not necessarily like they're not going to learn hypnosis, but they'll learn like what we just did, right? How to overcome limiting beliefs and stuff like that. Cause there's a process. I've done it so many times that I could just rattle it off, but like, that's all based off memory. Right. But it'll help people, what I like to call get out of the gray zone. So basically, I'll explain this, to answer your question. But, so one thing that a lot of people deal with, and a lot of people are kind of stuck in this area, is they get stuck in the gray zone. Okay. So the gray zone is when things in our life aren't really, really good, and they're also not really, really bad. So they just kind of get stuck in this gray area, right? And it's kind of like a comfort zone. So the problem with the gray zone is it's the most dangerous place to be in, because a lot of times we lose our motivation, right? So let me borrow this.
Go for it.
Can any of these cameras see this paper or no? Would I have to position it anywhere?
Yeah, no, you can draw it and show it up to the camera.
Okay. So let me draw this and explain it to you. Go for it. So let's see how my upside down writing skills are.
Yeah, let's go for it.
When I used to do insurance, I was tapped in on this.
Or you can turn it around. I don't really care.
Okay, cool. So let's take these 3 lines here. Okay. So So the bottom line here represents...
Here, right on the marker so the camera can see.
Oh, okay.
That'll work even better.
Okay, cool. So the bottom, or let me rewrite the lines. So let's take these 3 lines here. Okay. This bottom line represents the pain line. Okay. This top line here is the pleasure line. I'm not going to spell pleasure, but you just have to use your imagination.
Got it.
And this middle area is the gray zone. Okay. So now for the purpose of this example, we'll use money. Okay. Because a lot of people struggle with money and things like that. So we'll use money. And then these lines going in this direction represent time. Okay. So for the purpose of this example, let's just say down here, the pain line is $0. Now this could be anything. Like this could be $100,000. It could be $1 million. It could be anything.
It could be negative $1 million.
It could be negative. Yeah. Most people are in the negative when it comes there. Most people are in debt. So, and then the top line here, let's just say this is $100,000. So 100 grand gets somebody super excited. They really want to make 100 grand or save 100 grand. Right. And then let's say this area is the gray zone and let's say that's 20 grand. Okay. So if all of a sudden, Scott, you hit this $0, what would happen to your motivation?
Be through the fucking
through the
roof.
fucking roof, right? So boom, you would do as much as you can. You'd work night and day. You'd freaking all the excuses, all the fears, all the limiting beliefs. People aren't going to listen to me. All that would go out the window.
Yeah, I'd be
right?
making cold calls. Like
You'd making cold
motherfucker.
calls. You'd be doing
Right.
anything. But then, again, yours is obviously a lot higher than this. But let's say you get to that gray zone, right? Then what happens? That motivation, that desire, that intensity.
It wanes.
It wanes, right? And most people will kind of go like this. They start avoiding, procrastinating, making excuses. I don't have the time, my family, my blah, 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 blah. And I've been there. So I'm not like calling anybody out. And then they get back down to the pain zone, right? And then what happens? Oh shit, I got to make cold. I got to do what I got to do. Oops. And they get back up here. And then again, they avoid, they procrastinate. And most people go through this till they're 100 years old. Okay. So
by the way, can I just tell you what you just drew?
Yeah.
You drew something I talk about in my coaching business all the time, which is loan officers, lead generate. They close a bunch of deals. Then they get stuck working on their business instead of in their business. They don't do any lead generation. Mm-hmm. And then, oh shit, I didn't fill my pipeline. So now I funded no loans. Uh-huh. Oh fuck, I got lots of time to lead generate. So I'm going to lead generate. Oh, I funded the most loans I've ever funded, but I didn't do all the things that got me here. So now the next month I have no loans. This is exactly the roller coaster that loan officers are on, because as soon as they hit that gray zone, they like don't think they have to do the things that got them there.
They just coast, right?
They just coast.
And then everything unfolds. And this is what I went through, basically 10 years of insurance. Now, also, guess what happens? You know, do you have any tattoos? You don't have tattoos, right?
I do on my back.
Okay. So when you got your tattoo, the first 5 minutes kind of hurt a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But then what happened after a while?
You don't even know it's
you
there.
don't feel it, right?
Yeah.
So if somebody keeps staying at this pain zone long enough, what happens? Well, no longer is pain anymore, right? Now the pain zone becomes their gray zone. And then there's a new line down here, and this is what we call debt, right? So this is negative X amount of dollars, right? And then most people will just keep going further and further and further. So why is it that people can't take this intensity, this desire, this motivation, all the excuses, all the fears go out the window? Why can't they take that and apply that to here? Okay, because this is what the most successful people in the world, they just keep going. Well, it's because, again, childhood, life experiences, et cetera, their subconscious mind is more programmed to respond to pain than it is to pleasure. So one of the things that I'll do with people is we say, okay, let's get rid of all the pain motivation you're holding on to throughout your entire life, whether it's finances or whatever, it doesn't matter. And let's get your subconscious mind 100% focus on the pleasure. And when your mind is focused on being motivated by pleasure instead of pain, again, this process is never ending. And then some people kind of do this here, right? And they'll slowly get better. But you can tap in to this energy, this mindset or whatever, where it's just consistently going up all the time. So that's the program I'm working on, is a series of hypnosis recordings and some basic information on why this happens, et cetera, so that people can actually just pop in a hypnosis recording from the comfort of their home, listen to it, it'll reprogram their mind so that they focus here, and then they'll go out and start taking massive action more than they ever have before in their entire lives.
Yeah.
So that's to answer your question. That's what I'm working on right now.
This sounds similar to the Tony Robbins thing where he talks about, people either move away from pain or towards pleasure. And then of course, later on in the seminar, he tells you, but the weird thing is people will spend a lot more time and energy trying to avoid losing $20 than they will making $20.
Yep.
Because we get stuck in this fear, scarcity mindset, pain.
Right.
And the real winners, they seem to just keep elevating these lines. It's
right.
like, oh yeah, so, $20,000 a year got me out of the Army. Well, now $20,000 a month barely pays the overhead for our two businesses. So it's like, now there's just a new line, like $50,000 is the gray area. So I just got to do more and do more and do more. Let me ask you, is there a downside to this, especially with money, where it's like there'll always be a more expensive car, a more expensive boat? Like, a coach of mine one time said, your ability to spend money will always run at 120% of whatever you're earning. Because it's like, oh, well, I can afford the best jiu-jitsu gym in town, but do I afford private lessons? Can I now afford private lessons with a UFC champ? Can I now afford to go to all the UFC events? It's in some ways it can be a dangerous trap on the other side of like, you just never get to a pleasure point. Is that
so why is that bad though? So here's the thing. What's more dangerous? Staying here or everything you just described? Because that doesn't sound like a dangerous chapter.
No, it doesn't sound dangerous except
it's like never being satisfied type of thing.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. This is another thing that I'm going to put in my course, and also I go through with my clients, is there's goals and then there's intentions. Okay. Your goal is, yes, I'm going to get to this 100,000 a month or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Your savings, whatever. So that's your goal. Now, if you set a goal without any intentions, it may go really good. It may not go really good. You could make that $100,000 a month, but you got to sell your soul and you're selling a product you don't believe in, or you're working 100 hours a week. You don't see your family, right? So your intentions are, how am I going to go about achieving that goal? So that would be like, okay, my goal is 100,000 and I'm going to do it doing something I enjoy, having fun, working 40 hours a week or whatever people are into, and still maintaining my health. I still go to jiu-jitsu. I still hang out with my family, and I'm going to enjoy every bit of it along the way. Yeah, there's going to be ups and downs. Not every day is going to be great, but at the end of the day, I'm going to appreciate the process. So it's kind of like, go hiking to the waterfall through the forest. If you're just focused on the waterfall, you're going to miss the scenery around you. So it's about doing both. So I don't see it as a negative as long as you are appreciating the process along the way and you have your intention set to how you're going to go about doing it. Cause I've been there, back in my 20s, I remember working 90 days in a row because I owed like $10,000 or something to the IRS or something. I worked 90 days in a row, 12, 14-hour days. I'd wake up at 5, I'd hit the gym by 5:30, and I'd be off to the run, and I'd get home. I'd have no energy to do anything. I'd fall asleep. So cool. Would I ever do that again? Fuck no, I'd never do that again because that's just ridiculous. But it's because I didn't set my intentions. I wasn't like, hey, I'm going to do it, whatever. So I don't see it, and maybe it's just a personal opinion thing, but I think that wanting to get better and do better and whatever, whether it's your health, your relationships, I always want to grow. I always want to learn. I always want to personally develop. I always want to increase my knowledge, but it's not coming from a place of lack or insecurity. Again, that's when you're motivated by pain. Like, oh, I want to look really good because I was made fun of as a child, right? That's pain motivation. No, it's like, I want to look really good so that when I look at myself in the mirror, I feel good. I can be attractive. I can, people respect you when you're in shape and you look good, right? So, I
definitely don't think you're a hypnotist when you're in shape.
No, not at all. Not at all, right? They're like, what? I had to I got when I first started doing hypnosis, I was like all proud of it and stuff. And I'd be like all ready to tell people what I do. Like, oh, almost like, ask me what I do. Cause I could be like, oh, this is what I do. It's almost like a attention type of thing. And then after a while, like you get so many different responses from people. I was like, I'm going to change that. Not because it's kind of a weird thing to explain, not in the way, it's just because people think that like, oh, stage hypnosis. And that's not what I do.
Right.
So now when people ask me what I do, I'll say, other than what you're my training partner. And I was just like, whatever. But like random people, I'd say, are you familiar with like hypnosis and NLP? And they'll go, yeah. And I say, yeah, that's what I do. And I help people with X, Y, Z or whatever. So, But yeah, I don't think it's unhealthy. It's like Conor McGregor. Some guy asked him. I remember as a speech he gave, not a speech, an interview he gave, and he goes, "I'm just fucking obsessed with fighting. I'm obsessed with what I do." Blah 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 blah. And the guy goes, "Being that obsessed," he's like, "Don't you think that's unhealthy?" And he looks at him. He goes, "Do I look unhealthy?" He's like, "Look at this physique. Do I look unhealthy?" I'm like, "Damn, that's a fucking great point."
Yeah. So, speaking of Conor, that guy has to be on like HGH or something.
Oh yeah, he's jacked
he is
right now.
Jacked.
Yeah,
he's 5'4".
He looks like he's on test. Yeah. He's his face is blown up and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. A lot of those overseas guys, I feel like a lot of them are on something because, you just see their bodies and USADA is United States Anti-Doping Agency, not the Ireland Doping Agency or Brazilian Doping Agency. So I don't know how that all works, but I don't think that there's definitely a lot of guys, in my opinion, just by the looks of them that are, that do juice or whatever.
Yeah. And I don't care how amazing your diet and your physical regimen is. Men just don't go through second puberty at 35. You don't become the best version of yourself at 35. Exactly. I am in a little bit better shape at 42 than I was at 32, just because I was eating too much pizza and eating too many Oreos.
Right.
But it's like, I couldn't just all of a sudden look like, Lou Ferrigno in his prime after 3 years of training at 40-something years old.
What I could say is because he was so regimented for so long, maybe he did just eat like he's not training and stuff. So obviously you're not training, you're eating not only what you were eating before, but even more now. Cause I heard him in an interview saying, I've just been eating, I'm bulking up since he hurt his leg or whatever. So I could see that. He's definitely jacked, but he doesn't have like that veiny, out of control, like Paulo Costa type of body where you'd be like, bro, come on, Come on.
Or was it Vitor Belfort?
Vitor Belfort? Yeah.
I mean, you look at him at like 25 when he was, a pro athlete to like 45 as a pro athlete. And at 45, he looked like a fucking bodybuilder.
Right.
He was pretty nuts.
Totally.
He was huge.
They used to call him TRT Vitor. But that was back when TRT was like all legit.
That's testosterone replacement therapy.
Yeah.
So you can just say that you have low testosterone and get pumped up with like the puberty
And I bet
juice.
like those guys, because of the rigorous training, there probably are points where they have low testosterone because of what they're going through. But yeah, they definitely, you just get your doctor to say whatever.
Right.
What's your doctor to say no? Like, come on, find another doctor.
Yeah, exactly. I'm interested for you. I know why I kind of started the journey of jiu-jitsu. Like, how long have you been doing it, and what made you start that journey?
I started doing it. It's been like 4.5 years, and when I used to sell insurance, I would listen to like Joe Rogan podcasts every day, right? So I remember specifically where I was when I kind of made the decision. I remember I was driving around, and he was on. He had a podcast. He was doing a podcast with Jocko Willink, and Jocko was telling a story or something like, "Dad, do you have any superpowers?" or something like that. And he's like, "Jiu-jitsu." And I was like, "Damn." And he goes, "Jiu-jitsu is like having a superpower." I mean, literally, if somebody has zero training at all, you have a superpower and jiu-jitsu. And I just remember hearing that being like, fuck, I got to fucking learn how to do jiu-jitsu. And leading up to that time, I had buddies that did MMA and they'd fight, and we go and, I'd spar with them like boxing or whatever. And my buddies that actually trained would always kick my ass. But I just, so then I went and actually after that, I signed up to do jiu-jitsu, but it was gi jiu-jitsu. And I want to say my second week in, the guy that I was rolling with, he grabbed my gi, didn't do anything crazy, just like had my gi and did this like flip over me. And when he flipped over, I dislocated my shoulder. Now I have a really bad left shoulder. I've dislocated it, I think 5 or 6 times. And so, because it was already compromised, it just popped out really easily. So then after that, I was like, fuck, man, 2 weeks in and I'm already injured. And then I couldn't lift, and I used to lift like a lot back then. And so I was like, I got to find a no-gi place. And so in San Jose where I lived, like every place I would look at, there was no gi, or if they did have no gi, it was the times didn't work out. And I remember one of my buddies at the time was like, bro, you got to move to Vegas. Vegas is so much cooler than San Jose. He's like, it's cheap to live. He just
state taxes.
No state. Yeah. Just explained to me all the benefits of it. And I was like, huh. And then I remember just being like, okay, if I move somewhere, I want to move somewhere that has gi jiu-jitsu. Like moving to Vegas, doing jiu-jitsu was like my number 2 reason, to be honest with you. Yeah, I was like,
no-gi jiu-jitsu.
To do no-gi
yeah,
jiu-jitsu was literally, I was like, I want to go to 10th Planet because I heard Rogan talk about it so much. I'm like, they have a 10th Planet in Las Vegas. I can do my insurance stuff and I can go train at night. And so jiu-jitsu was like the number 2 reason why I moved here. And so
how do you tell your wife that, by the way?
I don't even think I did tell her. I think
like, how
in my mind, that's
relocate
what it was.
our whole life because I want to work out at a specific gym for a non-professional athlete? That's
a
right? Weird thing to like commit to.
Well, at the time we were paying like $4,000 a month in rent. So we're like, oh, we can move to Vegas, live in a really nice place for like $1,800. Fucking sold. So then we moved here, and then I started training at the 10th Planet in Henderson. And in the beginning, I was like super gung ho about it, and then I got a knee injury, so I kind of had to take some time off. And then I came back. I got an elbow injury. There's always, but these were like injuries where you can't fucking train, not like oh my leg hurts.
I tweaked it,
no, like I couldn't do anything. So and then now I've been pretty consistent. I haven't trained in like 2 weeks. I've been working on this program I've been telling you about, so I've been taking every second I can to work on it. But so the reason I got into it, to be honest with you, I've always, in high school, I was about 6'2", 6'3", 155 pounds. That's where I started. Yeah. So my buddy's dad introduced, you were
150 pounds?
155. I was just
6'2"?
At 6'2", yeah. At 15, 16 years old.
Dude, I was 150 pounds in like 6th grade.
Were you really?
Yeah.
Wow, yeah. So I was like kind of short in middle school, and then I just hit a huge growth spurt, but I didn't grow physically. Well, then my buddy's dad, he had a gym in his garage, and so we'd go over to his house after school, and he like taught me how to work out. So we'd go over there however many days a week, I don't remember, and I just got really into working out. And then once I started to put on some size, I started to notice like, oh, I'm a little more attractive. The girls are looking at me a little different. Like people treat me differently. And then I want to say by the time I left high school, I was like 190, but I was like pretty jacked. I wasn't really, I didn't have a lot of body fat. And then I just progressively I've always worked out. There was probably a year when I first started doing insurance, I kind of shied away from it because I was working so much, and I kind of lost it a little bit. But other than that, like I've always lifted weights, and the biggest I ever got was like 250, but I was kind of chunky. I was a little thick. And then, so I was always a big guy, and I was like, when I had hair, I was like a pretty boy. So I was big and like I was a pretty boy. So, and the guys didn't like that. So I would always get in fights with people because they're like, oh, this guy, whatever. Maybe they're jealous or I don't know.
My buddy Chad tells the story, right? He's like, I don't know what it is, man. Like, I just have a face that people like to punch. I'm like, Chad, shut the fuck up. You must be obnoxious when you get drunk or something. Right. And then sure enough, we're at a club one night in Vegas, ironically. We were here for a mortgage convention. And he's like just kind of on the dance floor, doing his thing, having a drink. And some other dude in our group gets in a fight, and there's no way that the guys on the dance floor could know that Chad and this guy Al were friends, because they weren't dancing with the same girls, they weren't hanging out, they weren't buying each other's drinks. This dude who like starts shit with this guy over here literally turns to my buddy Chad and just drills him in the face unprovoked. And I was like, oh, there it is. Yeah, he looks like Jeremy Renner. Huh? He's kind of a pretty boy. He's kind of yoked for his size. And he's like, yeah, he just looks like the guy that people want to punch. So you were like the 6'3" version of that.
Basically, the dude people just like to punch. Yeah, and then and I think also too, though, I used to have this thing, like I always wanted to like prove myself. So kind of I would look for it almost in a way of like, I don't want to start it, but if it's there, like I'm totally down. But really deep down inside, I didn't really want to. It was more of like, I got to prove myself to people that I'm tough. So it was like this thing of like, oh, if there's an opportunity, I really don't want to take it, but I'm going to do it so that I look cool. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I wouldn't shy away from those circumstances. But deep down inside, I always knew like, I can't really fight. So if there was a person there was confrontation, I would always fucking hit first. Always. And the one time I didn't, I remember me and my buddies were at the beach. We were like 18, and these guys were talking shit to us or whatever. They were like they were like skater beach dudes. I used to skate, but and I remember just one dude just cold clocked me, and then it was a whole melee. He didn't knock me out or anything, but I was just like, stumbling around, and then two guys kind of jumped on me, and two guys jumped on my buddy. It was like 2 versus 6 or whatever, and I still have a right here on my tooth. You can't probably see it, but there's a chip in my tooth, my molar or whatever that's called back there.
Nice.
Because one dude had me in like almost like a guillotine, and his buddy was just uppercutting me from the side. So I clenched my jaw as hard as possible so I wouldn't break it. And he hit me and broke my tooth back here. But so after that, I was always like, all right, if somebody like really steps up, like I'm just gonna hit them first. You know what I mean? Like that's just way easier. But it was because I really couldn't fight. Like I'm just a big guy. I can hit you hard. And most of the time, you know, you're in a bar fight, people, you know, it gets split up. You're not actually in a real fight. You know
we're not
in
in a cage. They're not locking the door behind you.
No, you're not like, you know, whatever. So after that, I was like, dude, I can't just be this big. And like I said, my buddies trained, and every time I was around them, I always felt like the beta. I'm like, fuck, these guys could all kick my ass. So I decided like, okay, I want to actually learn how to fight and learn how to defend myself, not so I could fight people, but just so that like I'm comfortable with myself. And then, you know, when you do jiu-jitsu, you kind of like, you get really good really fast, or, you know, not that you get really good really fast, but your skill level from the average person to the 6 months of a white belt is like so fucking drastically more that since I've started jiu-jitsu, I don't even think I've been in a fight. And I would get into them all the time. Like, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu is weird because the first 6 months you feel like, going back to that superpower comment, you feel like you're learning something that's a secret and you're like, oh, this is so cool. And then you actually run into people that know what they're doing and you're like, oh, I have a decade before I'll be able to be that guy.
Right.
Like there's a couple guys at the gym, you being one of them, where I'm like, dude, I've got like 5 years of fucking private lessons.
Well, I'm also 30 pounds heavier than you.
It doesn't matter. It's just like there's a guy 30 pounds lighter than me that does the same thing.
True. That's
and I'm
true.
just like, the dude with the Batman tattoo and the Chicago Bears tattoo on his leg, shorter guy, pretty stocky, great guy, beard. He just fucks me up every time. And
Is
I'm
he
like,
bigger than me?
no, he's tiny. He's like 5'5", maybe 150 pounds. Just destroys me every time.
His name Chris?
I think so.
Chris.
Great dude.
He has like short hair. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, dude, I got years before I'll be able to overcome him. And I hate being bad at things, so I'm like taking private lessons and like sneaking out on Friday afternoons at 3:00 to get in private lessons because I just hate being bad.
No, totally, yeah.
And there's nothing worse than getting manhandled by another man. It's just like,
no, it's definitely it's like fuck, man. Yeah, I've when I had that knee injury, I took a bunch of lessons from Bendy, and we would do privates once a week or every other week. I can't remember, but I couldn't really like apply it because my knee injury. But I definitely learned a lot there. And you know, one thing I feel like I got really good at jiu-jitsu pretty fast, more than most people, not because of like, oh, I'm so cool or whatever, but definitely like the subconscious fears and all that. Like once you release a lot of that stuff, you have a lot of confidence, you know? And I actually posted this the other day, you know, when you can align your conscious and subconscious mind, like you just become a killer, because your subconscious mind is where all your beliefs are, your habits, your behaviors, your confidence in yourself, right? That's all subconscious. So if a guy who is really, really like a natural, confident person, natural leader, just that kind of person, he can go to jiu-jitsu and find somebody who has zero confidence naturally, but they have all the conscious, logical skills of jiu-jitsu, the how-to, the technique. That guy is going to beat the guy with all the confidence in the world, right? But if the guy with all the confidence in the world stays long enough to learn those techniques, he's going to be a fucking killer. And then at the same time, if the guy with all the logic and knows how to do the technique, if he cleared out his beliefs and aligned those beliefs, he would also become a killer. So I think because of the work that I do and like clearing out a lot of my shit, and also just the hours of training I put in, I feel like I was able to get pretty good pretty fast. And also one thing that I'll do when I'm in the groove and you know, everything's clicking, I always meditate on jiu-jitsu. Like I'll go home, and not every time, but you know, 2/3 of the time, I'll go through a sequence of like, okay, what did we learn in class today? Because we learn and we go through stuff. You never use it again, right?
Right.
But I'll go through, I'll close my eyes and I'll start visualizing what did we learn? And I'll visualize myself from a third person perspective, like I'm watching myself. And then I'll visualize myself from my own perspective, like me doing the move. And then I'll visualize myself imagining like I'm doing it to me. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm the opponent, essentially. Somebody's doing the move to me. And doing those mental reps over and over again, like just allowed my jiu-jitsu to kind of go up pretty quickly. So,
this reminds me of the free throw experiment. Did we talk about this? I feel
no,
like,
but I know what you're talking about though,
yeah.
where they take like a guy who just imagines it, and then a guy who imagines it and does it, and then a guy who doesn't imagine it, he just throws it. And then the guy who imagines it has way more than the guy who actually shot, right?
Yeah.
And then the guy who like imagines it before he does it is even higher or whatever. But
yeah, it's crazy.
Dude, that shit's real. Like, I don't care what anybody says about like meditation or what visualization. To me, visualization isn't necessarily like law of attraction. Like, yeah, that stuff is real. It's not more so like, oh, I'm going to visualize the win and get the win. To me, it's like, oh no, I'm going to visualize the technique so that I have rehearsed it 100 times before going and producing it. Because if you can watch something and then do it, well, imagine if you're, visualizing it in your mind, you're going to do it even better. So I know that those, and also how many reps do you actually do when you're in a class? Not really that many, because you're switching off, you're doing 2 and 2, whatever. If I just sit here by myself and close my eyes, I can rep out fucking 10 times before I do 2 in class. Plus you got the fatigue factor and everything else. Right. So definitely visualizing the technique, not necessarily like the win and all that, but the technique will take anybody's game to the next level. Closing your eyes and doing it.
How much additional benefit do you think because this could be in jiu-jitsu, this could be an athletic endeavor, this could be visualizing, professionals making cold calls, getting done with an hour-long class, running home and going on with the rest of your day, putting the kids to bed, that versus, okay, I'm going to sit in the car and visualize what I did, spend the extra 10 minutes of like going through the reps in my head, really committing it to memory. Like you said, the 30 reps you got in the gym, you can probably run through 60 in 10 minutes in your head. How much extra lift do you think that gives somebody by spending that extra 10 minutes?
It's not even comparable. Like, you're in two different worlds. Because, I mean, yeah, one day of doing that, maybe not. Even one day, like, if you can imagine if you could learn something. So we just went to a childhood memory when you were 6 years old. You had no idea where that came from, right? And if I asked you, what did you learn last week on Monday? You'd have no fucking clue. No clue. But if you close your eyes and you kind of go back to, what was I doing that day? Oh yeah. What was I wearing? Oh yeah. Oh, what was Andy wearing? Oh, what we did? And you're like, oh, that's the technique. You kind of wear it down into that little pinpoint and you have it. So imagine you do that. But instead of waiting a week to do it, you do it right after class. The next time you go into class, you're going to have that and you can just bang out the move right then and there. Right. So I don't know what the percentage is, but I'll tell you, it's not even, those two people won't even be in the same realm. Like the guy that just goes to jiu-jitsu and doesn't visualize, and the guy that visualize. Honestly, I've learned more from fucking YouTube videos and practicing at home by myself. I've learned more off of that than I do in class, like straight up. Not because of the teachers or anything. It's because, number one, I get to choose what I want to learn. So sometimes you go to class, you learn something you don't really want to learn, but you're there, you go through the deal, whatever. But being able to pick what you want to learn and what you want to adjust, what you want to get good at, and then just mentally repping it out and then going to class and then performing it. All my best shit is YouTube shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because again, I've repped it out 20 times at home in my head, and then I go into the gym and I can perform it with precision. But not to say like, don't go and train. Like, no, fool, you got to fucking go and train, obviously. Right. But you start adding that to your game. Like, even when I'll take, like, I haven't trained in 2 weeks, right? I'm going to go train tomorrow. Before I go to train tomorrow, I might even sit in my room. For sure, I'm going to visualize, but I'll sit and I'll write down like, what are all the, because I never start on top because I'm always bigger than most people. So I always start on bottom, but I'll be like, okay, what are my sweeps from bottom? What's in my game? And at first you're like, and it's like, oh yeah, that one. And I don't even know. I'm so bad with names and shit. I'm like, bro, fucking, I just name it like whatever. Yeah. I'll just put it together. And I'm like, I think I only have like 3 sweeps. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit, there's fucking 12 sweeps that I know. And then I'll go through and like kind of rehearse them. And then when I go to class, it's almost like I never took a day off because I did that mental rehearsing and wrote it down and went through the process rather than, I haven't trained in 2 weeks. I'm just going to go show up to class. Like every time I've done that, it's a shit show. And I'm like, fuck, I get fucking ran through by everybody.
Right.
But if I could just go through my main stuff I haven't thought of in a while, by the time I go in, because remember, your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what's happening in real life and what's going on in our mind. So earlier when you started to visualize that thing that was causing you anxiety, why were you breathing hard? Your body's starting to, get tense up. It's because it literally thinks you're living in that moment. It thinks you're being attacked or whatever you were visualizing. So your body starts to produce all the physical symptoms of you being in that situation. So when we visualize something, our body thinks that we're going through that. That's why, like, when guys watch porn, they get a hard on, right? They're not actually having sex, but in their mind, they think they're there. So their subconscious mind thinks they're there. So by repping it out in your mind, your subconscious mind is getting those reps as if you were actually doing them.
So funny. Derek, who's at the gym that we're at, I was talking to the other day, we were working on something, and he's one of the elite guys in our gym. He's, 22 and he's like a brown belt, probably should be a black belt.
I don't even think he's 22. Derek.
Oh yeah. Maybe he might
like
only be 20
or 19.
Yeah. He's insanely good. And I was asking him about some defensive stuff. He's like, oh yeah, that's my genre because I started when I was so young, 9 years old or something, getting beat up by adults that I had to get good defensively. Like I was never going to be physically strong enough to tap Andy or somebody 10 years older than him. He's like, but I could escape. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I'm like, so what are you working on now? He's like, dude, I've pretty much just been visualizing escaping Andy's guillotine for 2 years. Like I refuse to let him tap me with a guillotine. And he knows Andy is somebody he's going to have to face one day in like an ADCC trial or something like that. He's like, if I have to give up this position, and I saw him going through the checklist in his mind. He's like, I refuse to get tapped by him any longer with a guillotine because that's Andy's go-to move. And it's so funny because same thing. Here's this 20-year-old guy that probably doesn't understand anything that you and I have talked about conceptually for the last 2 hours, but he just knows if he wants to get better and be world-class at jiu-jitsu, he's got to think his way through these defenses. It's pretty awesome that he's figured that out on his own.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. I have no aspirations to do anything with jiu-jitsu. I don't care to compete. It's just not something that excites me. Like I have a fucking business, I have a family, and there's other people that have that too, and they'll go after, but I didn't get into it for that. I got into it because I wanted to be able to defend myself and the camaraderie and the workout aspects. But if I could go back, like if I was younger, I would totally just dial into that meditation, the visualizing, and just really become obsessed with it and just, take it to another level. But no, man, I love jiu-jitsu. It's fun. It'd be nice to be able to do it for a really long time, but it's just those injuries, man. They just freaking...
Yeah, they pile up.
You're just like, ah.
Hey, last question just about the business on marketing. If you're comfortable disclosing how much you charge, that'd be awesome. But how do you market for something that people probably either don't really understand or they have that stage hypnosis, theory of what it is, right? Like having just gone through this exercise, I'm like, oh yeah, I'd pay this guy money to help clear some of this bullshit out of my mind. But to see you on Instagram or talk to you at the gym and then be like, oh yeah, that's something I'd sign up for without the demonstration. I don't know that I would ever exchange cash for like your knowledge. So how do you go about marketing for this and like, how do you make a living out of it?
Yeah. So, on my Instagram, so I run ads and people will follow me and then I'll have conversations with people. They, DM you or whatever. And then, people just see what I post and then usually something will resonate with them or like, oh shit, I didn't realize that I was doing that. Or I didn't realize that was a thing. And so they kind of warm up to it that way and most people have heard about hypnosis and they have a little bit of a curiosity. And then once they look at what I do, it's like, oh, this guy's, like you said in the beginning, he doesn't look like the typical hypnotist, right? And, I think people just kind of see just what I present, like, oh, he has a family. Oh, he does jujitsu. Oh, he's not some old white guy with gray hair and a pocket watch. Like this dude is a normal dude, And and then, people I think people see the message I put out and then they'll book a consultation or we'll have a conversation through Instagram. And then, like I said, I'll have someone from my team do the initial take-in call. So what my team does is, and man, if people like even doing a free call, just the initial intake call, that in and of itself will change your fucking life. Like whether you move forward or not, like doing what we just did, that one little thing, but going on in a little bit deeper in a private setting, that just wakes people up to like a lot of stuff. And so the person that does my intake calls, they've been trained all in what I do. They're certified and all that. And so she kind of goes through, figures out what does this person need to do? What do we need to do moving forward to help them? and then she'll sign them up, and then I'll do the sessions and everything. So, and then I get referrals. Since I have been doing it for a little while, I have at least one client a week that signs up from a referral, and I only take on because I'll do a series. It's not like one session type of thing. It's
Can't
a series.
solve all my problems in 1 hour.
No, I wish. It'd be cool. I'd be a fucking billionaire if that was the case. If I could solve everybody's problem in 1 hour. But I'll do like a 5, 6, 7 session ordeal over a couple of weeks, and so I'll only take on like 3, 4 clients a week, because outside of that it becomes hard to live my life. But and then sometimes here and there we'll do like 5, 6 or whatever. But yeah, it's just I kind of just what it was, going back to meditation in the beginning. So for like the first 6, 7 months of doing this, I took, at the time I was making like 12, 13 grand a month selling insurance or whatever. And it was good money. But when I started doing it, hypnosis, like I was barely getting by in the first 6, 7 months. Like I remember, I want to say December. Well, here's the thing. I didn't get into this to make money. I got into it truly because I was excited about it. I wanted to help people. That was the first thing. And then I was like, just making money is a bonus. So again, if I had to take a pay cut just to be happy, but do something I want to do, I'm all about it. And so I remember, I think it was December 2019, maybe the year of COVID. I remember looking back on it. I want to say I made like $1,600 in a month, $1,600. Like,
yeah, pretty scary when you have a newborn, right?
Yeah. So luckily, like I had some money saved and everything, but, so I definitely didn't do this because of, I was going to cash out or anything, but, I remember like kind of going through that, like, man, like I got to get more consistent with this. It's kind of hit or miss. It's there, I do enough to pay my bills and have a little bit left over, but this is just not enough. And I remember meditating one day. I'm like, man, what the fuck? What do I need to change in my business? And I'm like, dude, you've spent the last 10 years marketing your insurance business. So why don't you just do the same thing with hypnosis? Just run ads. And I was like, oh, fuck yeah, no shit. So I just started running this ad. Dude, I ran one ad that was just me doing a rapid induction where you just grab somebody's hand and say, sleep, right? That was it. It was like a 17-second video. No, like, oh, I'm going to do hypnosis with you. Nothing. It was just that. And I ran that ad for like 2.5 years. And so many people would follow me from it. It ended up having like 5 million views or something. I spent a lot of money on it, but, and that's kind of how I just built it up. And so, yeah, but it's been
Instagram ads. I'm writing that down right now.
Yeah.
Who knew that was a thing?
Oh, you didn't know that?
I mean, I assumed, right? Like any free platform, there's some type of ad revenue, but I didn't realize that it was that easy that you could just run like a 20-second video and
you can
pay for views.
Yeah. Well, you're not paying, they're like fake views, but you're
right.
Paying
you're paying for it to be sourced or put in front of people.
Yeah. So I did that, and I just kind of built up my following from that. And then, I think people see like, oh, this guy's worked with people in the NFL. He's worked with UFC athletes. And I think that kind of gives it a little bit more credibility,
right?
Because I'm not just some, random person or whatever. But it's going really good. If you would have asked me 3 years ago, Dom, do you think you'll have worked with as many people as you've worked with and done as much as you've done and everything else? I would have been like, there's no fucking way, dude. That doesn't seem possible. But I just broke it down. I did things in steps. I was patient, and I just kept building. And now it's like, man, imagine where I was 3 years ago. Imagine where I'm going to be in 3 years from now. Wow. It's going to be even better, because just in the last year, I want to say I've probably invested $60,000 into personal development and like courses and extra trainings and stuff like that. And so my knowledge base isn't just like a regular person. I feel like I'm not trying to brag or anything. I put a lot of freaking time and energy and effort and money into my skill level. And my ability. And it's only going to get better. Yeah, I never even thought about that. That's like the equivalent of a college education, but with way more fucking hours. Like the amount I put, like money wise, I put into it plus time. Like, yeah, it's been a lot. So
there's a book I'm a big fan of that you'll probably love called The Coaching Habit, where it's like 5 questions to change somebody's life. Mm-hmm. And it's all about how to go through it's like industry agnostic. It's just really like, how do you ask these 5 great questions to get people to the next level? And I'll get you a copy of the book. It's excellent. Chris, could you order a couple copies of that book, The Coaching Habit by Bung Gay is his last name. He's a Canadian dude. It's so in line with like everything you're doing, and it's a quick read. It's reading in one session on the toilet or something. I'll bring you a copy. It's an excellent book. Last 2 questions, then we'll get out of here because I really appreciate your time and I know how valuable it is. One, we weren't as locked down here in Nevada during time of COVID, but like I said, I split time between LA and Nevada. So I was in the communist state of California for much of this. And I know the training partners that we work out with, they kind of all made the decision early, like we value health above being concerned about the pandemic. So luckily our workouts continued. But is there anything you're looking forward to getting back to post pandemic that like, back to normal, or anything you feel like you were missing out on? Now that we're recording this the first half of 2022 and it looks like things, at least in the public health sector, are getting back to normal.
Yeah. When the pandemic is, I don't say this lightly or in a negative way, but like that was the best thing that ever happened to me, because what happened is people went from having these busy lives and running around and everything to having to sit at home and sit in their thoughts and deal with the anxieties, the shit that they've been going through. And they had all this time to just scroll on Instagram or whatever, all day long. And so that was actually when my business really started to take a turn for the good of like leveling up. So once that happened, I was already doing most of my stuff online. And then I just went 100% online. Like this is probably in 2 years, the only in-person session I've ever done, you know what I mean? Like other than people I've worked with in courses and stuff, but like I do 100% my work online. So nothing has changed for me. It just, now I was actually talking to my mom about this earlier today. Eventually I'm going to do in-person seminars that are like the 2-3 day type of deal, 3 day weekend, kind of what I went through, where you bring people in, you go through a breakthrough, you help them get through their issues, just because I'm to the point now where like one-on-ones, I still do them and I'm going to continue to do them until I fully transition. But my schedule is so booked up, I can't, like if I want to scale and really have more, also freedom of my time is really important. So I'm going to start doing like quarterly, hypnosis seminars, not necessarily teaching it. I am certified to teach it, but maybe at a later time, but more so to like help people get through their bullshit they're going through. So I'm going to end up doing that. And who knows, there could be, couple hundred people in a room going through this process, healing and working together. So that will be something after I get this project done that I'm going to start looking into kind of transitioning into doing that. And then I'll still do some one-on-one stuff here and there. So yeah, but you never know. Is there going to be another variant or,
something crazy?
I don't know. So I'm not going to put all my eggs in one basket. Maybe if I do that, I'll do it in Nevada was like semi, okay. So, with the whole being open and all that stuff. So, if I did do it, I would definitely do it in a short time frame. Like, hey, this is going to be 3 months from now, not a year or 6 months,
or just do it in Texas where they don't care.
Or do that. I was thinking that too, Texas or Florida or something, and make a weekend out of it. So that's kind of where my mind is headed, but one step at a time. I'm in no rush. I'm pretty patient, and the more patience I have, the more success I have. So it's kind of like being patiently, I don't know how to say it, but not just waiting for, not just like there's patience sitting back and expecting your crops to grow. And then there's patience doing the work, but also your crops are growing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's the side I'm on, not just like, I'm going to sit back and not do shit. So yeah, I'm looking forward to, what happens here in the next months.
And last question. This should probably start being the first question, Chris, on the show. You'll have to remind me next time, because I feel like I'm a big like movie geek, and so I feel like I learned so much about people on this question. Yeah. Favorite movie and why?
One of my favorite movies used to be 40-Year-Old Virgin. I could watch that freaking movie. I don't know how many times I've seen that movie, just so many times. But like that's always my first one go to, because it's just such a freaking funny classic movie.
The scene where they're around the poker table and he's trying to explain what boobs feel like.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, they're like sandbags.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, it reminds me of like every 7th grade conversation before guys have like touched a boob,
Right.
and you're like, everybody's trying to like, you know, man up and act like they've kissed a girl before.
Right.
Like that scene is so relatable for every man.
So
It's just
good.
whoever wrote that movie is
Genius.
excellent.
Yeah. I like the one where he's like, oh yeah, something about like, oh, you want to go ride home on my bike? And she's like, ooh, you got a motorcycle? He's like, no, bicycle. And she's like, oh. And then she's driving him home, and then she throws up, and I think she said, what did she say? Like, oh, I forgot. She said something about the waffles or something. I don't remember, but I got to watch that movie again. It's probably been a couple of years.
The whole movie is just like every guy's most cringe-worthy moment around women.
Yeah.
They just encapsulate it all in that movie. Like, I remember the part where he's telling the story about why he just never lost his virginity. He's like, well, and then that one time in college, and we were really drunk, and he just kicks the girl in the face,
Yeah.
and she's just
bleeding
everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, every guy can relate to that.
That's
of like,
so funny.
just thinking you're about to get laid, and then something goes super haywire. You know,
Right.
it's like it's fantastic. So
yeah, that would be my answer.
There you go. Hey, Dom, thanks so much for being on, man. I want to have you on the next time you're either launching the live event or, you know, when you really get down this online class. I want to see what that's all about. And I feel like we could talk about this shit for hours. So
yeah, totally.
Just want to say thanks for being on,
yeah,
man.
Thanks for having me, man.
Cool.
It's been a pleasure.
Talk soon.
All right.